Look at us going live again. Hey, this one's going to be a little different. This live today, and I know a lot of people usually watch these after they're over. Watch when you can. It's perfectly fine because I'll definitely repost this. But today's a little different. You probably know if you've been following me for a while. I do a lot of work with um, wildlife and exotic animals. I do a lot of stuff with conservation. Last couple people I've talked to has been more of a broader scope of wildlife and doing things within the realm of conservation, whether it's your local urban wildlife or something or somewhere else around the world. Today's topic's a little different because this week, guess what happens? This week we have Thanksgiving. And then a couple weeks later we have Christmas. And then after that, New Year's. And a lot of things in our lives get different. And with that, then if we have pets at home, things can get different as well. So the goal of this conversation today, I'll be joined hopefully soon by Dr. Sarah Cortright. She's a veterinarian here in San Diego who I happen to just have her account come across my feed. The algorithm does wonderful things. And started looking at her content and I thought, well, that's kind of cool. You know, I've always worked with veterinarians, both for exotic wildlife and also for domestics. And to have someone at her caliber who does emergency vet work be able to talk to us a little bit about some of the things that she sees in her vet clinic, I thought would be really cool. And with that then too, how it applies to the holidays we're going into. How does this impact us if we have pets or animals in our home? So with that, I see that Dr. Sarah just joined and she'll get her request in here hopefully soon and we will get chatting. But things to consider when we look at holidays and our pets. So what's different? You know, pets and animals in general, they thrive in routine. And humans do too, for that matter. And the routine changes when we hit the holidays, whether it's for different days off or we're cooking more food or we're going somewhere or people are coming over. All these routines change and can add then to our stress. Our pets can read off that stress, but can add to theirs as well. And as our routines change, we can also be faced with, you know, the routines for our pets change, our thoughts around our pets, and trying to make sure they're safe and doing all right changes as well. And there's Dr. Sarah Core right now. Hey, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm excellent. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me today because I've always done stuff with animals and wildlife, but also I've had pets my whole life, and I've worked and volunteered at humane societies. And I
Mhm.
just thought someone with your caliber, your experience, your knowledge would really bring a lot more to this conversation. So I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I was just explaining to everyone before you popped in that just
Mhm.
your stuff came across my feeds. You know, the algorithm does its wonderful magic. I was like, hey, here's someone who could have this discussion. So tell us a little bit about your background and what makes you who you are and why you chose to be a veterinarian.
Yeah, so right now, so I've been a veterinarian for 5 years, and
Mhm.
currently I'm actually training to do ER veterinary care. So
Right.
I'm in the process of that. So I historically have done general practice.
Mhm.
But my personal background, I actually grew up on a dairy farm in New Jersey.
Nice.
I'm in California now, but I grew up around animals, always loved animals. I actually wanted to do farm animal medicine for quite a while, and then I
Mhm.
realized I'm not really suited for the cold and the elements. So my focus is small animals, but the really fun thing about where I'm working now is we do actually see what we consider exotic pets. So we
Mhm.
see reptiles, we had a turtle come in the other day,
Nice.
birds. So I am kind of expanding the scope of what I see as well.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, like I had mentioned, this conversation I wanted to have with you today is as we are going into the holidays, and I was mentioning before you popped in here too, is our routines and our structure changes, and it can throw people off quite a bit as well. Our pets will feed off of our energy as well, and so it can change maybe how they're going to act, behave, or react. But then on top of that, as our schedules change, we don't always think about, oh, did I get the dog out in time for going to the bathroom or clean the litter box well enough, or something as simple as forgetting to leave something out that shouldn't have been left out that your pet can get into. So I wanted to kind of ask you for your perspective from the veterinary side of things. What would be some things you would recommend people be thoughtful of or think of as we head into the holidays, whether it's Thanksgiving or the Christmas holidays or even New Year's for that matter?
Yeah, and I think You're kind of right on track with your thinking. So much of what we see pets coming in for into the ER during the holiday season really is related to a change in routine,
Mm.
introducing new people. We got, especially where I'm at right now in San Diego, we get so many people who are here vacationing or visiting
Right.
family. And it's always kind of, oh, I was at my in-laws and they gave my dog something, or my dog
Mm.
found something, or we took out the Christmas decorations and they decided to get into that. So
Mm.
anytime we are introducing new people, a new location, new foods, or even just anything new in the house,
Right.
not only can that trigger stress for our pets, especially our cats, but that we have to really be aware that anything we are introducing is a new potential hazard for them, especially if we've never seen how they interact around that new thing. Cats are
Sure.
notorious for, trying to climb on the Christmas tree. Our dogs much more likely to try to get into the Thanksgiving turkey or whatever we have
Sure.
left out on the table. And in addition to that, making sure that anyone you are inviting into your home is really aware of being cautious with your pets the same way that you would be with children, honestly, because if they do get into anything, it's very challenging to prove that unless we know that it happened because we
Right.
can't ask them. So
Right.
prevention is really crucial.
So with that then too, going into prevention, if you
Mhm.
know, like in the past, that either having people over or you being gone if you're traveling and someone's looking in on your pet
Mhm.
causes them stress, when is the best time to have that conversation with your veterinarian to maybe look at either anti-anxiety? I know some animals, people want to take them with them and they travel on the airplane for the first
Mhm.
time. It's been my experience. Obviously, people usually ask once the issue happens. As a
Mhm.
veterinarian, what would you recommend? When's the best time to start having that conversation with your veterinarian to see if a
Yeah.
prescription or even something that's over the counter would be recommended?
Yeah. Probably tomorrow the latest. We get a lot of requests on, Thanksgiving Eve, like, oh, I totally forgot my pet's anti-anxiety meds, so it's a little tricky to get them filled very, very
Yeah.
quickly. But yeah, I mean, if you are traveling with your pet, um, regardless if they have a history of being really stressed out, I mean, obviously, if you know that, get those medications and have that conversation well ahead of time.
Mhm.
But if you have any of those concerns, definitely reaching out to your vet team as soon as possible because there is a lot more that we know about anxiety in our pets as well. And, the same for people. I always use the example, I personally hate going to the dentist. And every time I go, I feel like my anxiety gets worse because now I know what to expect. And the same thing can happen with our pets. If they
Sure.
have had a stressful experience and then it continues to get more and more stressful for them, that's just going to compound. So using intervention, whether that's medications or certain strategies to reduce their stress sooner rather than later, so they don't have that progressively worsening experience. But if we are talking about having pets in our home and bringing new people in, if you have a pet that's really stressed, just give them their own separate space, whether that's a
Right.
bedroom, even a closet where it's dark. You can put some white noise on for them, have their food, their treats in there. As, as much as we want our pets to socialize and see our family, sometimes that's not the best for them. And
Right.
then, same with traveling, really making sure that your pet is used to traveling. If you have never taken your cat out before and now you're doing a 12-hour ride to grandma's
Oh
house,
boy.
maybe not ideal for them.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah, and so with that too, the recommendation is, I mean, it's a bit late now for Thanksgiving travel, but perhaps for other holiday travels coming up, the
Yeah.
recommendation is, spend a couple of days doing short trips first to see how they do and make sure it's positive and, reinforce the good for them. So when the 12-hour
Exactly.
drive comes, it's not so
Hmm.
bad.
Yeah, exactly. Start small with them and really kind of build up that tolerance the same way you would do anything else.
Yeah, exactly,
Hmm.
exactly. So one thing that can happen often, especially around Thanksgiving, is someone's, clearing the table and they think, oh, a couple food scraps for Fido's no big deal.
Hmm.
There are certain foods though that are a big deal, and of course, poultry bones can also cause a lot of problems. Can you share a little bit of that with us?
Yeah, absolutely. And yes, Thanksgiving foods not ideal for our pets. So biggest things that we worry about in general, and then specifically what we can see in some of these items, anything with onions and garlic. some, again, keeping in mind that some of these are kind of dose dependent. So
Hmm.
a 5 pound Chihuahua versus a Great Dane eating a little bit
Right.
can sometimes be different. Anything with chocolate, grapes or raisins, also anything sugar free. So anything with xylitol, or sometimes it's listed as birch sugar,
Hmm.
and really any fatty leftovers or anything with bones. So some of those things I listed can just be toxic in general. Other things, especially our grapes, we really worry about those grapes and raisins, as well as sugar-free items.
Hmm.
Other things we worry just more about them causing GI upset, and of course that depends on the quantity that they consume as
Sure.
well. Um, Specifically in our population of pets where they are prone to any sort of gastrointestinal issues, if they've had pancreatitis in the past, the issue with our pets eating fatty foods, or truthfully any food that's kind of out of the norm, it can kind of put the pancreas into overdrive and
Mm.
cause pancreatitis. So that can start just as, general GI upset, but that can progress and even become life threatening in some cases. So
Hmm.
really making sure, and I know my own pets are like Houdinis sometimes. It amazes me what they can get into. But really making sure, honestly, just keeping them out of the kitchen or wherever you're eating,
Right.
and ensuring that all the guests are fully aware of the dangers of that. Obviously, children is one thing, but I have heard so many stories of, even though we warned so and so, they still gave the pet this. So
Right.
potentially just removing your pet from the situation, because I think truthfully people mean the best, like, oh, just a cute little treat,
Oh,
but they
sure.
don't
Yeah.
they don't realize the potential real harm that they could be doing.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, I like chocolate. I love chocolate. And so it makes me happy. I want to make my dog happy. So here, have a bite of chocolate. But I want
Yeah.
to go a little further into what you said so people understand too.
Yeah.
You talked about toxicity for some of these items, but then you also talk about gastrointestinal. So, of course,
Mhm.
gastrointestinal means that they could vomit, get diarrhea, be uncomfortable for
Mhm.
24, 48 hours. But the toxic stuff, that we're
Mhm.
talking liver and kidney issues, right?
Correct. Yeah. So, xylitol, for instance, what we often see happen for those pets if they get into those sugar-free items, not for cats actually, they don't really have that same response, but for dogs, it can actually cause a life-threatening hypoglycemia. So,
Wow.
their blood sugar gets dangerously low depending on how much they get into. So that can be acutely life-threatening. With grapes and raisins, that can lead to kidney failure. Also certain plants as well for our pets.
Hmm.
Lilies, I feel like we associate more with Easter, but that can cause renal failure
Right,
in our
right.
in our cats. So
Yeah, yeah. I forgot poinsettias too. That's coming up. That's going to be an
yeah,
issue.
exactly. Yeah. So just being very cautious, because some of these things, and often we will see initial clinical signs of, the pet's just acting strangely, not doing right,
Right.
maybe not wanting to eat, being a little bit tired or lethargic. But often those things can, kind of progress very quickly, especially if we weren't aware of the toxin exposure.
Right. And one thing worth noting too, in my experience,
Mhm.
at least with exotics, and I assume it's somewhat similar with some domestics, but maybe you could shed more light on it, is that often animals will mask when they're not feeling well because it's an
Mhm.
instinctual thing to not show that because that means, you could be in
Mhm.
trouble by other animals either picking on you or whatever the case may be. Do we see that in domestics as much as well?
Definitely. I would say for me personally, I think I see it more so in our cats. I think our dogs tend to be a little bit more generous with what they show us.
Okay.
But the other thing as well is it can, we can see maybe the onset of a toxin exposure or GI upset, and it could be maybe kind of low grade for a couple of days, because we can't ask them like we can in people where they're just
Sure.
like, oh, I'm feeling a little off.
Yeah.
So we might not see initially vomiting or extreme lethargy right away until it hits a point where it's already critical. And then at
Hmm.
that point, our options for treatment are unfortunately a lot more limited in
Yeah.
some of these cases.
Yeah, that's what's so tough, and that's
Hmm.
why I wanted to do this little live with you is just to kind of get people thinking about we sometimes don't think about it. We're distracted, whatever it might be, and some of these things can be so dangerous for our best friends, and it's so
Yeah.
heartbreaking to have to go through that. And from
Hmm.
your side, from the vet side, I'm sure you see more of it than the average person does, of course.
Hmm.
In fact, I think one of your posts I saw not too long ago was stuff removed from the stomach, like a solid netting or string or cord or something. And
Mm-hmm.
that I want to go back to, we touched on a little bit about decorations and things like
Yeah.
that. I think sometimes people don't realize that when we feel something in our mouth that isn't right, we tend to want to get it out and figure out what it is. Where
Mm-hmm.
sometimes dogs and cats will go, okay, well, I'm just going to keep swallowing and going until the sensation is gone. Can you shed a
Mm-hmm.
little light on that as far as what sort of decorations should we be looking out for, and why do pets sometimes do this where they end up gut loading themselves with a ribbon or something like that?
I why they do that, I don't know if anyone knows the answer. I mean, certain pets, of course, if they have underlying GI disease, sometimes we can see them eating kind of inappropriate things secondary to that. But
Hmm.
sometimes we don't have a reason. I had a case not that long ago of a very, very small dog. I mean, like I don't know, a couple of kigs that ate 31 hair ties. So
Oh
we
my
had to
gosh.
take 31, and this is a tiny dog. So we had to take all of those hair ties out via surgery. So we had to cut
Hmm.
into the stomach as well as the intestines. So yeah, clearly the first one, second, first 10 didn't stop this dog. Like we just kept eating them. So to your point, there's not really that same like, oh, this isn't food and I shouldn't
This
be
isn't
eating
right.
it. I don't know if it smelled good or what kind of stimulates them, but in some cases, and that's why if we do know that our pets have eaten something that they shouldn't, please call your vet right away.
Yeah.
Emergency vets are open 24 hours, at least to get advice. You calling us, we don't charge you, we don't force you to come in, but that way we can tell you, yes, this is something you can wait on, or no, we would recommend having you bring your pet in immediately to induce vomiting because that is really your best chance of getting it out. Once
Mm.
it's passed through the stomach, and sometimes again, if it's still in the stomach, we can scope it out. But if it's past there into the intestinal tract, our options are very limited because we
Mm.
either can see if it will pass on its own and have to do repeat x-rays, or we're
Yeah.
really having to go in surgically. So, and depending on the individual pet, the size of the object, I mean, I've seen crazy things pass. I've seen a whole potato pass out of a dog.
Oh,
So I still don't
please
know
tell me it
how
was a big dog.
it wasn't that big of a dog.
Oh.
So I don't even know. I still think about that sometimes. I don't know how that
I don't see how
happened.
you couldn't think of that sometimes.
Like, I don't know. But then there's other things like we had a kitten eat like a very small piece of plastic that we ended up having to scope out because it was not passing. So
Hmm.
so it really depends just kind of how far it gets and how far the body will take it. So again, intervening early
Yeah,
is really the best thing, and always just call someone and ask because some things we worry less about, like if they ate a very small piece of, I don't know, a paper towel or something, that's
sure.
going to break down in the GI tract, but certain bones, toys, pieces of plastic, it may cause some serious damage depending on how long it's left in there.
Right, right. Well, and
Hmm.
I like what you said too, as far as like, reach out and call the emergency vet. They're not going to charge you for that. You can get a good
Yeah.
consult and get sort of an
Hmm.
idea like, okay, yeah, there's something plastic missing. It might have eaten that. Bring it in versus, paper towels. So I do
Yeah.
want to say anybody who's watching this now live and or, I'm going to post it so it'll go on forever. Now, before the emergency happens, if you don't already have an emergency
Mm.
24-hour vet number available, like Google your area,
Yeah.
find one you can be in touch with, call them ahead of time before the holidays. Say, hey, just check and make sure you guys are open during the holidays too.
Hmm.
Because the last thing you need is if your dog or cat is showing signs of distress, something is not okay. The last
Hmm.
thing you need to do while you're upset about that is try and find somebody to call,
Yeah.
that's in your local area. So I highly recommend people, if you, or the other side is call your vet and say, who do I need to call?
Hmm.
At 10 o'clock at night on Thanksgiving when something goes sideways.
Yeah.
That way you have that information already. It makes it a lot easier to manage that and put your
Hmm.
heart at ease to just go, okay, I'm going to push this button where it says emergency vet and
Hmm.
make that call.
Yeah.
What would be in your recommendation?
Hmm.
You don't know for sure if your pet did or did not get into something they shouldn't have. You can't necessarily see anything that looks like was chewed on or eaten or missing, but there's
Hmm.
people in and out because of the holidays, and now your dog or cat isn't acting just right. What are some of the things people should look for, or if
Hmm.
they see, should be sort of a little red flag? Okay, I'm going to keep watching you just to make sure. What would you recommend, or what do people usually see?
Yeah, and that question's hard because so many pets act differently.
Mm.
And I, especially when I was a newer vet, I would certainly have owners come in and, they would say the most vague thing like, my dog, just like kind of winked at me weirdly. So I just feel like something's off. And I remember being like, okay. But then I very quickly learned that, your pet best. So if you just have
Mm.
that gut feeling like something is off, then absolutely go with it. I mean, it can be as subtle as they're usually really energetic to go on their walks and now they're not really seeming interested.
Mm.
They usually devour their food and they ate most of it, but they didn't seem like they wanted to finish it. It can be
Right.
something as subtle as that. But again, talking to your vet early, because if we do worry about potential toxin exposure or they did eat something, we can always get baseline, blood work and x-rays and really screen for any abnormalities and
Mm.
then treat them supportively because majority, I don't, again, it depends on the situation, but so many of these things they will resolve on their own.
Mm-hmm.
But if they get into one of those more toxic things, then we
Yeah.
want to act early. So either getting them in to treat them supportively or just kind of start the monitoring process. That way we
Right.
have a good idea of where they're trending. But you know your pet best. So if there's something that's just like, this is just not normal for them, I always tell owners like I would much rather you come in and then we find nothing wrong than you having that sneaking suspicion and then we wait too long
Yeah.
and then there's something that we did in fact miss.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that's a good point too. It's like I think people who are amongst these animals, so pet owners,
Mm-hmm.
they know their behavior best and they know if they're just off. It's just like a parent with a kid. It's like, the kid's just off today for some reason. And to your point, it might be something that they'll pass or throw back
Mm-hmm.
up or whatever. But also, I think it's one of those things where, yeah, you should definitely err to caution. And that's why I, again, encourage, like what you said, call
Mm-hmm.
that 24-hour vet or your vet if they're open and have that conversation over the phone first and kind of run
Mm-hmm.
through the triage over the phone of like, okay, well,
Mm-hmm.
what are we looking at here? What's going on? What are you seeing? And then, should you wait a bit, come on in, whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, and that's it. And I wanted to mention as well when you had said that earlier, most vets will have some sort of answering service where it will kind of tell you who to call, but
mm,
definitely calling them ahead of time to see, who they recommend referring to. And
sure.
then even kind of one step further, especially if you are traveling with your pet and
Mm,
it's around the holidays, really calling your primary vet and getting your pet's medical records because if Fluffy has an emergency at midnight, which is of course always when
always the case.
it's
Yeah.
always when it happens. It's never, during business hours. It can be hard for us as ER vets to get all the information, especially
Right.
if they are on certain medications or they were treated
Sure.
recently. We don't expect the normal person to know names of medications and dosing. So if you can
Yeah,
have that
makes sense.
information, it makes a big difference, especially if you are going to be traveling, somewhere with your pet.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I didn't even think about that. And
Hmm.
yeah, and that makes sense too. Because like if you show up and let's say it's a older animal that does have medications on or has had a history of issues with something else, it
Hmm.
sure would make that vet's life a lot easier to have that information. So, and then
Hmm.
your pet would benefit from it too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Is there anything we haven't touched on that you would like to make sure people know or consider or think about as we head into the holidays with pets?
Yeah, I mean, I think we touched on a lot of good topics, but I would say really just again, the biggest thing that I always emphasize, try to prevent problems when you can. So I putting your pet in a separate area, keeping them away from new people, new foods, trialing things out, trialing them in a new environment before you're ever leaving them alone, and really having open communication with your vet and with your local ER. I love the idea of putting an ER that's close to you in your phone, putting it in your GPS because you don't want to be frantically driving somewhere.
Yeah.
But also, don't be afraid to call us for advice. We much rather triage you over the phone and let you know that this is something you definitely need to come in for, or this is something you can probably monitor at home. And that way, you have that peace of mind as well.
Yeah, yeah, great
Hmm.
stuff, great stuff. Well, thank you so much for your time this evening. I know you told me you're working night shifts now too, so I don't want to keep you
Yes.
too long.
No, it's okay. It's the morning for me, so we're just starting off.
You just had your coffee, you're good to
I
go.
literally have it right
Oh my
here.
gosh. Well, fair enough. Well, fair enough. Well, I really appreciate it. And I want to make sure too, any of my followers who are watching this later, follow Dr. Sarah Court, right? You've got great content up there. You're doing a lot of great stuff. And it's a way for people to learn sort of the vet side of things and some great tips about taking care of pets as well. So I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. And it's something that I'll share out then on social media as well. And hopefully people will start following you too, and capturing some of your cool content as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
You are very welcome, and I hope your shift tonight goes smoothly for you.
We'll see.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
All right, take care.
All right. Thank you. Bye.